Here we go, Raiders fans. Tonight is one of those nights where the football world is going to be glued to the screen. And you better believe I am right there with you. Fernando Mendoza is about to take the field in the national championship against Miami. And I can feel the energy already. I know I am not the only Raiders guy out there who is hyped to see him play. This is the kind of game that makes you think about the future, about the franchise, and about the direction the Raiders could be heading. And yes, I am going to talk about all of that in a bit, but first, I need you to understand that I will be live 1 hour before kickoff, and I want you there with me. Because this game matters, not just for college football, but for the Raiders' future as well now. Let's talk about the situation in Miami, because it is heating up in a way that feels like something big is about to happen. Mark Davis is down in Miami, and the Raiders are going to be making moves over the next 24 to 48 hours, and if you've been paying attention, you know timing is everything in the NFL. When things happen at the right time, it's usually not a coincidence. And that makes me wonder if we could be looking at some breaking news tomorrow. On the Raiders report, we've already seen a major shakeup this morning with the Buffalo Bills moving on from Sean McDermott after their loss in the divisional round to the Denver Broncos. That news was confirmed by the NFL insiders, and it is the kind of move that changes the entire coaching landscape. Here's what I found interesting. Brandon Beane is staying on and helping lead the search for the next head coach. Personally, I thought if you're going to move on from McDermott, you should probably move on from Beane too. McDermott did a lot of great things for that organization, and he is a respected coach. But the way that season ended, it felt like a signal that change was needed. The Bills have been slipping year after year, and the roster has been getting worse. They've basically been relying on Josh Allen to save them. And here's the hard truth. The Raiders do not have Josh Allen, so if we're being realistic, the coaching job in Las Vegas is a different kind of challenge. So, let's look at the head coaching openings in the NFL right now. You've got the Buffalo Bills, Tennessee Titans, Pittsburgh Steelers, Cleveland Browns, Baltimore Ravens, Arizona Cardinals, Miami Dolphins, and of course, the Silver and Black. People have been asking me what I think the best jobs are right now, and I'll give you my unbiased opinion. The Bills are number one, because you have Josh Allen. That's a franchise quarterback who can win games on his own. Number two for me is Baltimore, because they have Lamar Jackson and a solid roster around him. Some might argue that the Steelers' job is better than the Raiders' job, because Pittsburgh rarely fires anyone. But if we're looking at what each team actually has, I would put the Raiders at number 3, Pittsburgh at number 4, Titans at 5, Browns at 6, Cardinals at 7, and the Dolphins at 8. Now, back to the Bills. Sean McDermott had a winning record. 5 division titles and 8 playoff appearances since 2017. He is well respected, and he did a lot for that franchise, but I have asked you these questions before. When coaches like Mike Tomlin and Hugh Jackson were fired, it is my job to ask questions, and I will give you my opinion in a moment. The pinned comment on today's show is, should the Raiders consider hiring Sean McDermott? I want you to think about that, and let me know. I will give you my answer after this break. With all due respect to McDermott, I am going to pass on him. I have a friend who works for the Bills, and he says nothing but kind things about him. Everyone I have spoken to about McDermott speaks highly of him. But I truly believe Josh Allen saved that roster. You can debate whether it was McDermott's fault or Brandon Beane's fault, but the bottom line is the Bills needed a quarterback to keep them competitive. The Raiders do not have that luxury. And I believe there are better coaching candidates out there who fit the Raiders' needs moving forward more than McDermott does. I do want to share something that Richie Incognito said, because he is a former Raider and he has always been someone people ask about. As an offensive line coach, he told me he is not interested in that job. But he did say something interesting about McDermott. Incognito said McDermott is a proven leader, a consistent winner, a culture builder, and the kind of stability the Raiders need. I am not saying I disagree with everything he said, but I still think there are coaches out there who fit the Raiders better. The timing of all this is important. I believe the Raiders already have their eyes on a certain coach, and the ball is already rolling in that direction, with McDermott getting fired today. It feels like the Raiders are already too far down the road to pivot to him now. Let's shift gears and talk about Mark Davis, because this is where things get really interesting. I don't usually talk about Mark a lot because he is the owner and I want him to stay in that role. But when Mark does things that smart owners do, I pay attention. And I truly believe Mark Davis wants Fernando Mendoza to be the next Raiders quarterback. Mark loves money, and he knows what a generational talent looks like. He is down in Miami, and the Aces played yesterday, which is part of why he is there. But I have heard that Mark bought a massive suite at Hard Rock Stadium, not just for him, but for Tom Brady, John Spy, and other important Raiders people, including some head coach candidates. The fact that Mark is buying a suite for the national championship game is not because he wants to watch the Miami Hurricanes or the Indiana Hoosiers. It is because he wants to watch Fernando Mendoza, who is the likely #1 overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft. And that's not all. Mark and the Raiders decision makers want to talk to coaches about Mendoza. They want to know who would be willing to build the offense around him. They want to know how it would all work. That is why they are in Miami. They are not there just for the game. They are there to make decisions about the future. And if you didn't see my video yesterday, I gave my prediction for the game, but tonight, the kickoff is at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific. I am going live an hour before kickoff, and we are going to go all in. I am even giving away a Mendoza jersey. And if you are a fan of the silver and black and you want Mendoza, you are not going to want to miss what I am dropping today. It is going to blow your mind. But before we get to that, I want to talk about why I think breaking news could be happening tomorrow. I have done this before. When the Raiders fired Pete Carroll, I went live for 11 hours and 35 minutes. When they fired Josh McDaniels, I went live for 26 straight hours. If you want me to go live for another long stretch, it is up to you, but it depends on how we show up, and you know who always shows up: the fans. The Silver and Black Nation, so stay ready, because if something breaks, we will be talking about it live. Now, here is where the coaching rumors start to get real. Mark Davis, John Spy, and Tom Brady are all in Miami, and they already interviewed Mike McDaniel today, the former Dolphins head coach. I was told this interview was more of an offensive coordinator interview than a head coach interview, and that excites me, because I have said many times that the #1 offensive coordinator I would want for the Raiders is Mike McDaniel. He is a run-first guy who can also pass, and he has shown he can succeed in both areas. And if he can get 21 touchdowns out of Raheem Mostert in 2023, imagine what he could do with Ashton Gentry. My biggest concern has been whether McDaniel would take another job. But I have been told the Raiders are considering offering him $7 to $8 million to be their next offensive coordinator. Last year, the Raiders gave Chip Kelly $6 million, making him the highest paid coordinator. From what I understand, Mark is willing to match or even beat that number to bring in McDaniel. The top teams I was worried about for him were the Philadelphia Eagles and the Detroit Lions. So when I heard the Lions are working on finalizing a deal with Drew Petzing as their next offensive coordinator, I was surprised. Apparently, Petzing has ties to Ben Johnson, which is why Detroit went that route, with Detroit off the board. I think it comes down to Philadelphia or Las Vegas. And I am not saying the Eagles' job is not attractive, because it is. But there is chaos around that offense right now. If I were McDaniel, I might look at Las Vegas and think, you know what? I have more job security there than I do in Philadelphia. Especially if the Raiders draft a quarterback #1 overall. That is my opinion. And it is one of the reasons I think the Raiders are moving fast. But here is where it gets even more interesting. The next interview the Raiders have scheduled is with A.J. Terrell, the Panthers defensive coordinator. I originally thought that interview was happening today, but it is actually set for Tuesday. Timing is everything, and the order of these interviews matters, because Mike McDaniel is a minority coach, and A.J. Terrell is also a minority coach, which satisfies the Rooney Rule. That means the Raiders can move forward and hire their next head coach after these interviews. The next name on the list is Chargers defensive coordinator Jesse Minter. He has been the name I have heard the longest, and he has ties to John Spy and Tom Brady. I have been talking about the Raiders being interested in him since early December. If this is the first time you are hearing about it, then you are learning something from the show, and I hope you stick around. The timing of everything makes me believe the Raiders could be ready to hire Jesse Minter as soon as tomorrow. Now, some people have been talking about Jeff Hafley. I am going to tell you right now, that interview is not happening. It is either because the Raiders are going to hire Jesse Minter, or because Hafley will take the job with the Miami Dolphins. And if the Dolphins are offering him that job, I would not be surprised if he takes it. This is all happening in Miami, and the signals are loud. So, if I am right, The breaking news tomorrow could be that the Raiders hire Jesse Minter as their head coach, and then they bring in Mike McDaniel as the offensive coordinator, creating a structure similar to what they did last year with Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly, a defensive-minded head coach paired with a top offensive coordinator. That is the kind of strategy the Raiders could be building toward, and if that happens, the future of the Raiders could be shaping up faster than we thought. The reason I keep coming back to this is because the Raiders have been chasing stability for years. They have been chasing an identity. And when you see Mark Davis in Miami, when you see Tom Brady, when you see John Spy, when you see the kinds of people the Raiders are surrounding themselves with, it tells you something. They are not just there to watch a college football game. They are there to shape the future. They are there to make a decision that could define the next decade of Raiders football. And if you're a fan, you should be excited, because this is the kind of momentum the organization needs. Now, let's talk about the coaches again, because this is where the narrative gets real. If the Raiders do end up hiring Jesse Minter, you have to understand what that means. Minter is a defensive mind. He is the kind of coach who can build a culture of toughness and discipline. He can bring structure to a defense that has been inconsistent, and he has connections to the Raiders' power circle. The ties to John Spy and Tom Brady are not just coincidences. Those relationships matter, especially in an organization that is trying to build a winning culture. And if the Raiders pair him with Mike McDaniel as the offensive coordinator, you are looking at a setup that could actually work. But let me be clear, this is not just about names and hype. This is about fit. The Raiders have made mistakes in the past by hiring coaches based on reputation or name value, rather than based on whether they fit the team's identity. The Raiders need a coach who understands the Las Vegas brand, understands the pressure, and understands what it takes to build a winning team in a market that demands success. Minter fits that mold. He has the kind of personality and discipline that can hold players accountable. And in a league where so many teams are chasing the next flashy offense, the Raiders might need to return to fundamentals. Now, let's talk about the quarterback situation, because that is the biggest piece of this puzzle. Fernando Mendoza is the name that keeps coming up, and I'm going to be honest. I have been watching him closely. The reason he excites me is not just because of his talent, but because of what he represents. He represents a new era. He represents the possibility of the Raiders finally having a franchise quarterback to build around. The last time the Raiders had that kind of certainty, the team felt different. The energy was different. The whole city felt like it was alive with possibility. And that is what Mendoza could bring. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on our Las Vegas Raiders. And don't be shy, drop your thoughts on the news in the comments below. The NFL rumor mill was shaken this week by a whisper that refuses to go away. The Raiders may be on the verge of pulling off one of the most shocking moves of the season by bringing DK Metcalf to Las Vegas. Nothing has been officially confirmed, but around the league the buzz is growing louder, and executives, scouts, and fans alike are reading between the lines of recent signals coming from the organization. Metcalf's name has long been associated with power, speed, and fear at his peak. He is the kind of receiver who forces defensive coordinators to redesign entire game plans. The idea of him wearing silver and black feels almost surreal. Yet insiders suggest the Raiders are positioning themselves for exactly that kind of headline-grabbing move. The franchise has been searching for a true offensive identity, and a player like Metcalf would instantly become the face of a new era. What makes the speculation even more intriguing is the narrative of a long-awaited reunion. Sources close to the situation hint that key figures within the Raiders structure have admired Metcalf for years, believing his physical dominance fits perfectly with the franchise's historic image of intimidation and swagger. The locker room impact alone would be massive, sending a clear message that Las Vegas is done rebuilding quietly and ready to challenge the league's elite. There are, of course, plenty of questions. How would the Raiders structure such a deal? What pieces would need to move to make room for a contract of this magnitude? And perhaps most importantly, how would opposing defenses react to the sudden presence of one of the NFL's most imposing wide receivers stretching the field in Allegiant Stadium? For now, it remains a rumor, the kind that thrives in back channels and late-night conversations among league insiders. But if there is even a grain of truth to the speculation, the Raiders may be preparing to unleash a new terror on NFL defenses. And if DK Metcalf truly is headed to Las Vegas, The balance of power in the AFC could look very different in a hurry. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our Las Vegas Raiders, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.